Hey y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Katrina and this is Katrina Reads. So it's March. I want to talk about my Moody maybe TBR. I have been hard on myself since January because I wanted to get a little more serious about my hobby. I decided then, to become part of this community, and I had goals of this whole thing to just get involved in the community, not just consume, not just make videos, but I wanted to do readathons. I wanted to join a book club, and I did those things. I joined 3 readathons. So I did Winterwing in January, I did Blackathon in February, and a Buzzwordathon all year long. So that's a book a month with a word prompt. I was like a good little honor student and I did it all, and I wanted to make sure I had stuff sounded as good as possible. There were some mishaps. I wanted to make sure things looked as good as possible, and I definitely didn't want to fail. Even though I was getting tired by February, I definitely was not going to disappoint the Negro community when it came to readathons. So I made sure I at least read all the books, and so that, on top of picking some difficult reading when it came to Toni Morrison. I don't know why I thought reading Toni Morrison while pushing myself in some of the other areas was the right thing to do, but I did it. And then on top of that, I added reviewing, and I never was a reviewer. Like, for the most part, I may have accidentally titled some of these reviews, but these are book talks and chats that I do on here. I give my opinion. I am not a reviewer. And so when I added NetGalley to the mix, then I had time crunches, and I had to really start thinking about, okay, do I review something I DNF? Do I, let me really think about giving back, cogent feedback and on time. And there's also this number I have to try to get to, because on NetGalley, you need to have at least, and they want you to have, you're working toward having an 80% feedback goal, and that's the way people are going to pick you to give books to. Careless Whispers is by Cynthia Williams, and the description on Goodreads is she's falling in love with the one man she can't trust. Elena Robideau knows how people view her: cold-hearted, ambitious, ruthless, but it doesn't matter. Running the family business is all she's ever wanted, and she's so close she can almost taste it. Alex understands the power of a family legacy more than most, and the last thing he wanted was to take that from Elena. Her beauty and fierce strength were undeniable, but there's a softer side that no one but him seems to see. She's been taught that emotions are a liability, yet one impulsive kiss starts a chain reaction that neither of them wants to stop. So that's the book that I need to have read by the 30th, so I have more than enough time. The Deep is a book by River Solomon. Yet too holds the memory for her people, water-dwelling descendants of pregnant African slave women, thrown overboard by slave owners who live idyllic lives in the deep. Their past, too traumatic to be remembered regularly, is forgotten by everyone save one, the historian. This demanding role has been bestowed on Yetu. The Midnight Library is something I'm really looking forward to reading. It's by Matt Haig, and this is a book that seems, so I think I've said this a couple times before, but I am obsessed with Enneagrams, and I know that I am a 4. This was a book that definitely came up in some video that was a suggestion for a 4. I spent a lot of time in the past. I spent a lot of time regretting things and replaying things in my past, and listen to the description of this book. Between life and death, there is a library, and within that library, the shelves go on forever. Every book provides a chance to try another life you could have lived, to see how things would be if you had made other choices. Would you have done anything different if you had the chance to undo your regrets? Now, the space between worlds, I want to get to as soon as possible. It's by Micaiah Johnson. I hope I'm saying that right. So basically how I've heard this book described is that people can travel between worlds, but only if they are dead in this other world. And Kara gets hired somewhere because she can go to more places than normal because she has been killed more than anybody else, or has died in more than the other places. I think 300 from what I've seen. Oh, 372 worlds. So Kara's life has been cut short on 372 worlds in total. And I guess there's a mystery as to why her life has been cut short on these other worlds. So I'm very interested in this, and I wanted to possibly try to save it for BuzzReadathon or BuzzWordathon. I will never get this word right. I think it's BuzzWordathon. I wanted to save it for April because April's word prompt is space and galaxy, but I can't because I really want to read this. So if I don't get to it this month, then I have it for April, but I don't think that's going to happen because I'm very, very, very excited about this book. The next book I have is Pet Sematary. Not much to talk about with Pet Sematary. It's a classic Stephen King. It's the next one that I want to read, and oddly enough, as a lifelong Stephen King reader, I'm realizing there's a lot of his classic ones that I haven't read. The book of Unwinding is by J.D. Horn. He wrote a trilogy of books about witches in Savannah called The Line, and now this is another trilogy about witches of New Orleans. So this is the second book. The next book I have is called Bookworm Crush. It's a cute little, you know how I fall for the illustrated covers of romance books. And this is a shy bookworm. Amy McIntyre is about to compete for the chance to interview her favorite author who hasn't spoke to the press in years. The only way to step out of the shadows and into the spotlight, but that level of confidence has never come easy. The solution, a competition coach. The problem, the best person for the job is the guy she's secretly crushing on, local surfer celebrity Toph Nichols. So that looks cute. So the next book is out of my comfort zone, but I've heard so many different people in the book community talk about this series. And I mean, different types of readers, all of them vastly different. And so I'm going to read the book. There's a reader, Books Like Whoa. Mara is doing a podcast. She's decided to try podcasting out by rereading these books. And so I was like, what a great time to jump into it. I went and bought the book and then realized I had already thought to try this book because I first heard it from Books on Stereo. And so I meant to follow their series. So I'm going to be I have lots of extra material to kind of get into as I am reading this book. And it's a side changeling series, and it's called Slave to Sensation. I'm going to have to put my headphones on for this one. And so it says, dive into a world torn apart by a powerful race with phenomenal powers of mind and none of the heart. In a world that denies emotions, where the ruling Psy punish any sign of desire, Sasha Duncan must conceal the feelings that brand her as flawed. To reveal them would be to sentence herself to the horror of rehabilitation, the complete psychic erasure of everything she ever was. Both human and animal, Lucas Hunter is a changeling, hungry for the very sensations the Psy disdain. After centuries of uneasy coexistence, these two races are now on the verge of war over the brutal murders of several changeling women. Lucas is determined to find the Psy killer who butchered his packmate, and Sasha is his ticket to their closely guarded society. But he soon discovers that this ice-cold Psy is very capable of passion, and that the animal in him is fascinated by her. Caught between their conflicting world, Lucas and Sasha must remain bound to their identities or sacrifice everything for a taste of the darkest temptation. Now, apparently these are romance books that also have a deep lore and world building, and the world building has lots of politics and stuff in it. So that's why there's an ability to have all this extra stuff. There's 15 books. Apparently this is an older book. I've already been forewarned that the first two books, like the third book is supposed to be like really, really good compared to the first two books, but the first two books are still good. I'm hoping that this is a series that I can just sink my teeth into and get completely lost in. I loved being parts of certain fandoms. I loved being a part of Twilight and just being completely lost in that. Not just the books and rereading them, but I love the podcast, the movies, the merchandise, there was a friend at work that I talked to about it. I talked to my sister about it all the time. I liked all of that. And then when Game of Thrones came along, me and my husband talked about that, and or even Walking Dead was that way as well. We argue. My husband and I would have full out arguments about Rick versus Shane. And then when it came to Game of Thrones, we talked a lot about, we argued about certain things like who would have been a better king, or just political stuff, or we talked about what ifs a lot. That was always fun, listening to the different podcasts and letting him know, I just found this new podcast, I think you'll like it. And then when the show came on, going back and forth about that, and then more and more people coming into the community once the show came out. So like my sister never read the books, but now she was totally on to it. And then the collective collapse of all of that at the end of season 8 with Game of Thrones has completely taken that away. My husband stopped watching the show after a while. For him, it was off the rails before a lot of other people. So he stopped watching the show. He came back on board, and I did a rewatch of season 6 through 8 with him. So he was fresh when he came into season 8, and we were just disgusted with the end of season 8. This would be I would love to find something like that where there's a whole thing around it. Like I said, there's this new podcast coming out. There's people who've done rereads, and so I have all this back stuff that I can go back and watch and get all these different people's points of view, or see things through their eyes that I didn't see the first time I read through it, and get to talk to people or get on lives and stuff with people who are just as excited about something as I am. I'm hopeful of that. And as I'm saying it, I'm trying to calm myself down just in case I don't like it and can't get into it. So I'm setting myself up as much as possible to like it. So basically the point is I have nothing else impeding me from enjoying this book. So fingers crossed I have a world. I want a whole world to get completely lost in with the Side Changing series, and a fandom to get completely immersed in, and all this extra stuff that I can just totally listen to all the time and stuff like that. So I'm excited about the possibilities. Okay, so Doing Time by Jodi Taylor is going to be my Buzzwordathon book of the month. Time is the prompt. And this is going to be, I'm pretty sure I'm going to love this because I love the series that this is spinning off of. Jodi Taylor wrote a series called The Chronicles of St. Mary's, where I'm not sure if it's in the future or if it's just now and we just happen to have figured out you know what? I remember now that the book starts off a long time ago in a future far away or something like that. It does this play on words, so it doesn't tell you the time. And so they've discovered time travel, and there's all this obviously when time travel was found, countries went back and forth changing stuff, and there was all this chaos for a time, and then the time police came along and started to regulate it, and they were very, very strict. And they showed up as antagonists a lot of times in the Chronicles of St. Mary's stories. In the Chronicles of St. Mary's, they were time travelers who they went back and forth to just observe. But obviously they would get pulled into certain things and their heartstrings would get pulled, and they would change something or help someone, or someone would get left behind or hurt, or something would go wrong and they would have to change something to go back and get their person or something. And so the books are full of lots of drama, but they're very funny, dry wit. They're British, so it's very, very, very funny. I've cried listening to them. You laugh listening to them. Zara Ram is the narrator. She is amazing. You, in my opinion, have to listen to these. So Doing Time, again, like I said, is Time Police #1, Introducing the Time Police, a brand new series by the international best-selling author Jodi Taylor, an irresistible spinoff from the much-loved Chronicles of St. Mary's. At some time in the future, a secret of time travel will become available to all. Chaos ensued as people sought to take advantage, because there will always be nutters who want to change history. And so the Time Police were formed, internationally sanctioned thugs whose task it was to keep the timeline straight by any and all means possible. And they succeeded. The Time Wars were over. The Time Police won. But who will win the peace? Doing Time follows 3 hapless new Time Police recruits, Jane, Luke, and Matthew, as they try to navigate their first year on the beat. It's all going to be fine, obviously. So that sounds fun. Now, I added this book without reading the description, and so I'm going to be reading this with you. I read T. Kingfisher in January. My son and I read The Hollow Places, and both of us loved it. I think we both gave it like 4.5, 5 stars. Awesome book. It was a horror book, and I don't necessarily like horror just for horror's sake. I like Stephen King, but because I know Stephen King. So let's go read this together. The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. When a young woman clears out her deceased grandmother's home in rural North Carolina, she finds long hidden secrets about a strange colony of beings in the woods. When Mouse's dad asks her to clean out her grandmother's house, she says yes. After all, how bad can it be? Answer, pretty bad. Grandma was a hoarder, and her house is stuffed with useless rubbish. That would be horrific enough, but there's more. Mouse stumbles across her step-grandfather's journal, which at first seems to be filled with nonsensical rants, until Mouse encounters some of the terrifying things he described for herself. Alone in the woods with her dog, Mouse finds herself face to face with a series of impossible terrors, because sometimes the things that go bump in the night are real, and they're looking for you. And if she doesn't face them head on, she might not survive to tell the tale. So I like when friends go through stuff together. The thing that's keeping it sounds very much so like The Hollow Place, where there was a stuffed place that this girl had to go to. She wasn't clearing out a place, but her elderly family member had to go to the hospital. She was taking care of this place, and it was like an overstuffed roadside, oddities museum, and really it was just a bunch of junk. And then she finds a portal to another world. But she finds and the other world is just filled with a bunch of horrors. But she has a friend to go through all this stuff with and bounce this stuff off with. So I don't know if I want to go through this with one person without this other kind of sardonic character saying, certain, kind of going through with her and saying things, maybe some funny things. So I don't know if I'm super excited about this. No, I'm willing to give it a try because that other book was just so good. So let's see. What can we put at the end of this world? So let's do a space. Let's do a space. Any kind of space emoji. If you get to the end of this, whether it's the moon or the earth, anything that's easy to put if you've gotten to this point, because two of the books that I'm most excited about are off this world, kind of. So The Side Changeling is a different world. The Space Between Worlds is multiverse traveling. Thank you for supporting me by liking, by subscribing, and ringing that bell. Be easy on yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.